Hello, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This week at everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock, with news the risks of outsourcing by banks is now getting some renewed focus. But first in the US, the expectation was that their non-farm payroll labour force growth would undershoot the modest expectations set. But in the end, it beat those expectations, even if the absolute level was itself modest. Incomes are rising 2.5% in this survey, far faster than inflation. This data will keep the US Fed on track to raise rates again this year and start shrinking its QE holdings. And that being the case, benchmark yields rose again after the data was announced. Canada also reported better than expected employment growth. And back in the US, a new report says that while their major banks are strong, they face some new risks, many of which are outside their control. The report found that risks to banks lie in competition from non-financial lenders and in the rapid development of methods of money laundering and terrorism financing. Many banks have also become increasingly dependent on third-party service providers like Amazon, IBM and Google to support key operations within their banks. Over time, consolidation amongst service providers has resulted in large numbers of banks becoming reliant on a small number of service providers. It is risks our banks also have. Back in Canada, they are looking at toughening up how banks qualify borrowers for mortgages. Proposed new rules would require all prospective borrowers, even those with a down payment of over 20%, to undergo a so-called stress test before a bank can issue a loan. Under the stress test, prospective buyers would have to qualify for a mortgage at a rate roughly 2% above what's negotiated already. Actually, that's something similar to what we have in place in New Zealand. In the UK, there is playing out another example of how closely central bank regulators shift between their role and the companies they're supposed to regulate. A deputy governor of the Bank of England is lining up a role as head of Visa in Europe. Earlier in the year, she was forced out of the UK regulator on claims of undeclared conflicts of interest with a family relationship involving Barclays Bank. In New York, US Treasury 10-year yield has risen again, now at 2.39% after the non-farm payroll data release. And the price of oil has fallen by more than $1 a barrel to just over $44 a barrel now, while the Brent benchmark is now just over $46.50. And the price of gold fell even more by $9 to $1,213 an ounce. And in New Zealand dollars, that has wiped out about all the 2017 gains. The Kiwi dollar is basically unchanged at 72.8 US cents. On the cross rates, we're holding at 95.7 Aussie cents and at 63.8 Euro cents. The TWI is at 76.9. I'm David Chaston. That was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.